So I've been a registered dietitian for about the past decade. I've always worked in clinical practice at a hospital. So I work in ICU, stroke, and mental health primarily. And then about 4 years ago, I started a private practice specializing in gut health and digestive disorders. And the practice has grown. So I now employ 3 other dietitians. So we're a team of 4. And last year, we opened a branch of our clinic on campus at Western. So we're on campus 3 days a week through Health and Wellness Services at Thames Hall. So that's been a great experience. If there's any students, staff, or faculty in the audience, you can definitely reach out and come see us on campus, or we see everyone else virtually. So my contact information will be at the end if you have any interest in meeting with a dietitian. But today I'm going to talk about the impact of nutrition on not just our physical health, which I think is the obvious one that everyone thinks of, but also our mental and emotional health. There we go. Okay, so I wanted to start off talking about why nutrition is important for students. And I think that university is such a huge transitional time in people's life, and that times of a lot of change have a big influence on diet and lifestyle factors. So in particular with university, it's oftentimes the first time that students have been responsible for all their own food choices. So they may be preparing meals for on their own for the first time, which can include, the grocery shopping, the cooking, the cleaning, all of those steps. Or maybe it's just the first time they've ever been responsible for all of their food choices. And that leads to a lot of change. So there is opportunity there for both positive or negative outcomes from these lifestyle factors. So lifestyle factors that can negatively impact our health include things like excessive alcohol intake, very sedentary lifestyles, high consumptions of processed foods, excessive stress, and smoking. So those are all examples of negative outcomes from poor diet and lifestyle, and kind of side effects or symptoms of that can include weight gain, more frequent minor illnesses. So we always hear about the freshman flu, which is students in especially their first year, if they're living on campus, just being so much more prone to minor illnesses, colds, flus, things like that. Reduced performance or just struggling with the ability to concentrate, and then increased rates of mental health conditions like anxiety and depression. So on the opposite side of that, we actually know that good nutrition can contribute to a lot of positive outcomes, but for students specifically, studies have shown that there's a positive correlation between good diet and academic achievement. So we know that healthy diets have been associated with improved mental health, improved performance in school, and attendance, and that's typically due to less missed days because there's less illness. So lots of benefits for students for good nutrition, but being completely understanding that it's a really challenging time with a lot of change to implement good nutrition practices. Okay, so today things I'm going to go through are how to fuel for a busy day on campus. We get that question from students all the time. They have long days on campus, and how can they best fuel for that? Tips for eating on a budget. We know that the price of food is sky high, so that's a big one. How to balance your meals, whether you're off campus or on campus. Some quick and easy meal prep and snack ideas. Of course, I specialize in gut health and digestive symptoms, so I'm going to give a few tips for managing digestive symptoms, but it's such a common area of concern that we're hearing from students. Nutrition tips for supporting mental health, and then I'll just quickly review our dietitian services on campus. Okay, so to start off, we're going to talk about how to fuel for a busy day on campus. So that starts with thinking about the meal that you have before you even come to campus. And people always ask me if it's a really big deal to have breakfast. And I would say that it is not a big deal to eat shortly after you wake up. I am really not a believer of pushing yourself to eat when you don't feel hungry. I do believe in trying to listen to your body. So if you're not hungry first thing in the morning, that's totally fine. but it would be ideal to eat before you came to campus. So I always say to people, breakfast doesn't have to be at 7 or 8 a.m. Like breakfast can be at 10 a.m. mid-morning when you actually feel hungry. But if possible, before you come, you want to have a high fiber, high protein breakfast. So examples of that could be protein oats or some sort of cottage or Greek yogurt parfait, maybe a smoothie with protein powder in it, or sprouted bread with nut butter. Something that's got fiber and protein in it, because fiber, protein, and fat break down very slowly. So they tend to stay with us for much longer. So you want to get a really good base to your day. There's also benefits of high protein breakfast include less brain fog later in the day and more stable blood sugar control throughout the entire day. So what you eat first thing has a big impact on how you digest and process your food throughout the rest of the day. Drinking plenty of water. I think that we all need to have a water bottle on hand. The thing I have found most working with so many clients and hydration is it's just something we have to be intentional about. It's not easy for everyone, so keep fluids with you at all times, sip away. It's just something you're probably going to have to be pretty mindful of. Don't overdo the caffeine. So while there are some health benefits of moderate caffeine consumption, excessive caffeine consumption can lead to feeling jittery. It can lead to feeling anxious. It can trigger digestive symptoms. So we really don't want to overdo it. I think that when you know you're going into a really long day on campus and you want to show up consistently throughout the day, it's like, oh, just keep the caffeine going to keep me energized. But it can kind of backfire on you. And we want to typically cut off our caffeine intake by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that it's not affecting your sleep that night. The next tip is to pack balanced snacks with you. So if you have classes back to back, it may not be possible for you to either get home to grab a meal, to have a full meal that you packed, or to pick something up on campus. So having snacks that you can have in between your snacks or during your, in between your classes or during your classes is going to be so important. I give examples later in the presentation of what a balanced snack looks like. So again, kind of ties into the refueling regularly throughout the day. So I typically advise to eat something, either a meal or a snack, about every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day. And again, that just keeps that sustained energy going, helps prevent kind of brain fog or that mid-afternoon slump, helps us show up in the best way for our classes. And last tip, I'm going to talk a lot about balancing your meals. So again, we want that protein, fiber, healthy fat at each of your meals. It's going to keep you feeling full. It's going to keep you satisfied in between meals. Okay, tips for eating on a budget. So everyone's well aware that the cost of eating out and getting groceries is sky high right now. It's something that's affecting everyone. So I talk to students a lot about this. My first tip is to plan your meals before you shop. So get really intentional, write out a meal plan for the list, a meal plan for the week, write your grocery list, and then go into the grocery store with a plan. When you don't go in with a plan, you end up buying all sorts of ingredients that you don't really know how you're going to use, and that can lead to much higher amounts of food waste. And with the cost of groceries, we do not want food waste. Buying frozen produce. I'm asked about this one a lot. Are fresh, frozen, or canned produce okay? So I would say fresh and frozen are absolutely equal. Frozen produce is typically flash frozen right off the field, so it's actually frozen right when its nutrient content is highest. It's typically less expensive than fresh produce, and you don't have to worry about food waste. So I love frozen produce. That's definitely a good savings tip. The canned, I typically recommend limiting because canned foods are pasteurized, so a lot of the nutrients are broken down. Oftentimes they have preservatives or lots of sodium added to them as well. But fresh or frozen produce are definitely great ways to go. I always recommend trying price matching. So download your Flip app, load in your grocery store. They actually have a really good grocery list part of the app, so you can put your grocery list right into the app, and then you can do your price matching. It's quick and seamless at checkout, doesn't hold up the line, but you can save a lot if you price match. Buying generic or store brands, most foods, the really very little difference between the kind of name brand and the store brand, and you can save quite a bit of money shopping that way. I really recommend batch cooking, both your whole grains and your proteins. One, it's going to save you time throughout the week, but it also makes it a lot easier. Oftentimes you can get like a large quantity. I mean, buying a big bag of grains is typically very expensive, or if you buy, you know, a large quantity of, say, chicken breasts, you might be able to get it on sale, or it might come at a discounted cost by buying a large quantity all at once. So you can batch cook and then either freeze or use them throughout the week. I always talk about, you know, incorporating meatless days into your meal plan, because meat is typically very expensive. There's lots of health benefits in having a couple of meatless days each week. So that's a great one for savings and for other benefits. And it also makes you experiment a little bit with your food. Maybe it makes you cook with beans and legumes that you're not that comfortable with cooking. So I think it's a great thing to do. Get some more variety into your diet. Eating seasonally, so you can get fresh produce at a much less cost if it's in season. So hitting your farmers markets and eating seasonally is definitely a great tip. And then lastly, cooking at home as much as possible. It's a fraction of the cost to prepare your own meals, plus you get the added benefit of knowing exactly what's in your food versus eating out and maybe poorer quality food for, you know, significantly more cost. So if you're looking to save some money, as much as possible, eating at home. Okay, so balancing meals both off and on campus. So here I always kind of start with this healthy plate method. It's so basic, but it really shows us, at least for our lunch and dinners, how we want our plates to look. So a quarter of your plate should be some sort of high fiber whole grain, a quarter of your plate should be some sort of lean protein food, and then half your plate should be mixtures of fruits and veggies. Again, this is going to make sure that you get all of your nutrients that your body needs. It's going to kind of cover all of your bases. And it's also going to keep you full, satisfied, make sure that, that you're feeling good after your meals. The other thing I always want to stress is that variety is important. So I'm a gut health specialist, and so I do a ton of research and talking about our gut microbiome and all the health benefits of these gut bacteria that we have living in our large intestine. And what we know about these gut bacteria is they feed off of different types of plant foods. So they're almost like you and I, they have taste preferences. So it's not good enough just to eat a high fiber diet or have lots of fruits and vegetables. If you're eating the same vegetables week after week after week, you're doing a great job feeding those healthy bacteria that feed off those particular vegetables, and you're neglecting all the other ones that might feed off other vegetables or beans and legumes and whole grains. So we really want variety in our diet. You know, each week when you go to the grocery store, try to pick out a couple of different, you know, couple new fruits, a couple new vegetables. Maybe you batch cook a different whole grain the next week, because that variety matters more than you'd expect it to. All right, so another tips just for balancing, how to build a balanced meal. So I always find that bowls are such a great way to teach people how to balance meals. They're delicious, they're endless varieties, so you can keep it exciting. They're great options to prep for lunches throughout the week. They tend to keep really well. So basically your format is going to be some sort of whole grain. So I give lots of options: brown rice, quinoa, sweet potato, buckwheat, millet, etc. Some sort of protein. So we have lots of plant-based options like our tofu, tempeh, veggie burger, beans, and chickpeas, and then any of your traditional meat and egg and fish proteins. Vegetables, we're always looking for 2 or more. I mean, the more the better. Again, that variety theme that I was just talking about. Some sort of healthy fat. So healthy fats are going to help us digest fat-soluble vitamins. They're really good for our skin, our brain, our hearts. So we want avocado, cashews, walnuts, so some sort of nut, seeds. And then in the sauce, also things like olive oil are going to be examples of healthy fats. So whatever sauce you like, that gives us flavor, that gives us satisfaction. Food should be fun too, and we should enjoy it. So we've got all these healthy ingredients here, but it should also be delicious. So I really like this kind of idea of building different bowls. to make sure that you're hitting all of your targets, getting everything that you need. So some easy meal prep tips. I always recommend dedicating a specific time each week. So, for me, Sunday afternoons are my meal prep time. I will be completely honest, I do not enjoy my meal prep time. It is a necessary part of my week, though. The very rare weeks in the year that I do not prep my meals, I feel out of balance the whole week. I like having my lunches prepped for the week so that I know I have some good fuel in the middle of the day. I like having some things prepped for dinner just to make my nights easier. I have 2 little kids, so anything I can do to cut time throughout the week. So dedicate a specific time and protect that time. Block it off in your calendar. Try not to book activities. I'm not saying it has to be so rigid, but it does help if you have in your mind this time set aside for your meal prep. Plan your meals in advance. So I've talked about that in terms of benefit with cost savings, but you need to have a plan, and it doesn't need to be so regimented. Typically, I recommend, make a list of dinners throughout the week, but you don't necessarily have to assign them to a weeknight, because I do believe, again, in eating intuitively. So if you get home from work and you were supposed to have, say, fish tacos prepped that night, and it does not appeal to you in the slightest, then pull spaghetti and meatballs from tomorrow's meal and, substitute that in so that it's something that you do want to eat, but you still have a plan, you still have a list of meals that you have all the ingredients on hand to make for the week. Keep a list of healthy and quick recipes that you enjoy. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I have to keep a running list of easy recipes that I enjoy for meals when I'm making my meal plan, or I can never think of things. So it definitely is a time saver. Anytime you cook something that you liked and it was quick and easy and healthy and delicious, then definitely make sure it goes on that list. As I've mentioned before, we want to batch cook whole grains and proteins. It's going to be a big time saver throughout the week. You can just grab, say you've got brown rice prepped, you've got chicken breast, or you've got a veggie burger prepped, put your brown rice, you add your veggie burger, then you just throw in some veggies, a sauce, and off you go. Washing and prep your produce before. So again, if you want to get everything ready so that even if you cut up all of your veggies beforehand, if it's easier to just grab things, I find that this one really makes people actually eat veggies throughout the week, because say you can just kind of put almost like a veggie tray out as you're cooking dinner or to accompany the meal, and it's really quick and easy. There's no excuse not to get your veggies in. And then consider time-saving cooking methods too. So either things like a slow cooker where you can be really hands-off, or a pressure cooker, or I love sheet pan or one-pot meals, less dishes. And anything that we can do to kind of cut some corners in the kitchen. And then again, preparing freezer-friendly meals ahead of time that can be reheated, that can be a really good tip for, especially if you're very busy during the week, or if you have long days on campus or at work and you're getting home late, you're going to be starving. Rather than stopping and getting takeout, if you can just pull something out of the freezer and quickly reheat it, it's going to save you a ton of time and probably a lot of money not getting takeout. Okay, so healthy snack ideas. So for snacks, we always want to look at pairing some sort of complex carb, so that's a higher fiber plant food typically, with a protein source. So it doesn't have to be a ton of protein, but we do want a bit of protein. And again, it's that combination of the fiber and the protein that keeps us more full, keeps us satisfied, and we're not going to be feeling hungry again an hour later. So I always love any piece of fruit with a 1/4 cup of nuts or some nut butter, 1/2 cup of plain Greek yogurt with some berries, raw veggies or whole grain crackers with hummus or cheese, any sort of good bread, so whole wheat, sprouted, sourdough, whatever you like, with nut butter and hemp hearts. Hemp hearts are actually a really good source of healthy fat and protein. And then something like cottage cheese with fruit and cinnamon. So again, these are all super quick and easy snack ideas, but that they're actually going to keep you satisfied, and they're going to help make you feel more in control and not so just starving and ready to eat anything when it comes to your next meal. Okay, when it comes to managing digestive symptoms, so we know now that about 20 to 30% of the population has IBS, so that's irritable bowel syndrome, so where they're dealing with quite a bit of bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, any sort of digestive irregularities, but even more of the population deals with those things, maybe not on a daily basis, but a regular basis. So common triggers of digestive symptoms are things like stress, traveling, either excessive alcohol or caffeine intake. Being overly sedentary can also trigger digestive issues. So then, particularly constipation. So then, simple strategies to improve your digestion. So we want to limit things that can be irritating. So things like spicy or high-fat foods, too much alcohol or caffeine, or carbonated beverages. If you're prone to bloating or issues with excessive gas, then carbonated beverages are not going to be your friend, unfortunately. Spreading your fiber intake across the day. So fiber is my favorite nutrient. It's so important for our overall health, for our gut health, all these great benefits, but it can be a major irritant to our digestion, and especially kind of overwhelming. And if you're someone who doesn't eat a ton of fiber on a regular basis, kind of overwhelming your digestion by having a really, really high fiber meal. If your digestive tract is a little bit more sensitive, try and spread it out throughout the day. So fruit in the morning, lots of veggies at lunch and dinner, and then maybe have a whole grain with lunch and some beans and legumes with dinner. Spread it out. Fruit for people with digestive issues, it can be high in a couple of the FODMAP categories, which can be, although extremely healthy, they can be triggering of digestive issues. So just limit to either just one piece of fruit at a meal, and try and limit fruit juice, because fruit juices can be quite irritating as well. Staying hydrated, so lots and lots of water, trying to space out not just our fiber intake, but our meals in general. It's very common for people to kind of have a light meal first thing in the morning, get super busy, barely eat all day long, and then have a very large meal in the evenings, maybe too late, when they finally have time to sit down, and at that point they're starving, so they overeat. That can really overwhelm digestion. So having, again, every 3 to 4 hours, having a meal or a small snack to kind of, again, spread out your digestion, it helps a lot. Incorporating stress management activities. So I think on my next slide, I'm going to quickly talk about the gut-brain axis and what that is. But stress is a major, major trigger of digestive issues. Even when you think of things like if you're nervous for a presentation, oftentimes that will get your stomach going a little bit. There's a major connection there. So trying to manage your stress as best as you can, and then really slowing down, being mindful, and chewing at meals. It sounds like the easiest tip in the world, but when we chew, we release digestive enzymes in our saliva, and then the actual act of chewing mechanically breaks down our food. So if we're prone to digestive issues, getting more digestive enzymes going and really breaking our food down small can help a lot. So many clients have come back to me and said, when I actually took my time and chewed thoroughly at meals, like you said, I felt so much better. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition for mental health and that overlaps. So I just introduced it, but you maybe have heard about the gut-brain axis. So at this point, the gut-brain axis has been well established, and it's essentially a two-way communication system between our brain and our gut. So they are in constant communication. So what that often means is like I was just saying, if you are stressed or nervous, it will often express itself in the form of digestive symptoms. Well, then if you have digestive symptoms, it's feeding that back into your brain, and that can worsen mental health. It can lead to increased issues with anxiety and depression. So the gut and the brain are connected both physically and biochemically. So what's fascinating about knowing this connection exists now is there's more and more evidence coming out to support a role for our gut health in managing and potentially even preventing certain mental health issues. So there have been some amazing studies done at this point that show a high fiber Mediterranean style diet, which is kind of established as our gut healthy diet, can actually, so following those types of diets have actually been shown to significantly improve mental health symptoms. So there was one study done that actually showed Mediterranean diet as more effective than like a cognitive behavioral program. So it's a really exciting area of research coming out. But just to kind of reiterate that everything works holistically, and having a good diet, it doesn't just help your physical performance, it helps how you show up in all aspects of your life. Yeah, so that was kind of what I wanted to stress today. Do you have anything else? So this, again, just to mention, we are on campus 3 days a week. We essentially see any sort of nutrition concern that you ever have. Although we do specialize in gut health, we see absolutely everything from just basic healthy eating or meal planning tips, weight management, any sort of specialized diet or allergies, intolerance, disordered eating, sports nutrition, you name it, we kind of see it. We also do meal planning, we do microbiome testing, and again, all of these services also apply to any general client. We do not need a doctor's referral. So if you have questions for me or are interested in seeing a dietitian, you can either go to our website, which is the gethealthydietitian.com, or you can reach out to me, which is Kelsey at gethealthydietitian.com. So I will open it up for questions. Hopefully that didn't go too long. I think we're wrapping up soon, but Amelia, you can let me know if there's any questions.
Yeah, I can let you know too. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. It was really interesting about the breakfast option. I feel like we're all so used to hearing, wake up, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So it's really interesting to hear from a dietitian that, well, maybe it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much has come out about, potential benefits of intermittent fasting, and that's a whole nother topic that I love to talk about. But yeah, I think we know now it's not for me so much about when you have that meal, it's about how to balance that meal and the type of meal that you have when you have it. So you should, listen to your body and eat when you need to. It's different for children. We know that, for kids, having breakfast before they go to school improves their performance at school. But for adults, a lot of times with my adult clients, I'll have them take like a quick 15-minute mid-morning break at around 10 a.m. and that's when they have their breakfast because they're not hungry first time in the morning. And for some people, it makes them feel sick or sluggish.
Right.
Yeah.
We got one question about what are your thoughts on intermediate fasting in terms of gut health?
Yeah, so intermittent fasting, again, one of my favorite topics. It has some amazing research for men. So one thing that is getting a little bit more attention these days is that most medical studies are done in male population only, and the female body works very different. So for men, intermittent fasting is great for digestion. So having a break overnight, having that true fast, our gut bacteria actually follow a circadian rhythm just like we do. So they actually kind of shut down overnight. So eating in the middle of the night is really not good for our health. So for people who work shift work and have to work overnight, it's not a great thing. So having a really true break overnight is really good for digestion. I recommend for everyone, all of my clients, at least a 12-hour fast overnight. And then for some people, they can benefit from going to more like a 14 to 16-hour fast. So it can be good for digestion. For men, it's good for weight loss. The same benefits have not been shown in women. It can be good for clarity, like mental clarity and preventing brain fog. Yeah, there can be a lot of benefits. The thing that women just need to be considerate of is because of our hormonal fluctuations throughout our cycle, we can be much more sensitive to anything that the body perceives as stress. And if your body perceives a prolonged fast as a stress event, it can actually have the opposite effect and can lead to weight gain and reduced mental clarity and more brain fog. So it's just finding that line of what feels really good to your body. But in general, I'm a big fan of some form of intermittent fasting, at least 12 hours.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, just personally, I mean, I think I've struggled with trying intermittent fasting before. It's just because that's not the way my body works, and I feel like restricting myself to not eating for a certain period of time tells me like, oh, maybe now I'm sort of in the mind space where I'm like, well, maybe I should eat. I should be eating, and now I'm eating down the.
But when people always say, well, would I be a good candidate for intermittent fasting? I'm like, the only way you're going to know is if you try. And it's typical when you start fasting to feel a bit of hunger, but if you're feeling excessive hunger, like you're obsessed with the idea of eating, or you're irritable, or you're weak, or you're dizzy, any sort of extreme reaction is a good sign that it's not working for you, and it's probably your body's perceiving it as a stress event, and that is the opposite of what we want. So it's really, yeah, in terms of it being a good fit for you, does it feel good in your body?